If you're any kind of a sensitive person, the wave of suffering you can feel when you walk into federal prison can be overwhelming. I can't remember if I decided this or if it just happened, but early on, I just knew that I was going to meet this suffering as best I could with kindness. Anybody who wanted to tell me their story, I listened. And I listened as a kind ear. I didn't listen as a prosecutor. I didn't listen trying to discern whether what they were telling me was true or not. I just listened to feel the person that was there and to feel the impact of what they had experienced, either as a child or during their crime or even during their incarceration. I remember walking the track one day with my dear friend Bird, who I've talked about on this channel before. And he had just learned that his son had caught a charge and would be going to trial and would be likely following him to federal prison. And Bird had really done his time well. He had done his self-reflection. He was honest with himself about the foolishness of what he had done. And it was just crushing to him to realize that his son, that he had functionally taught his son to follow in his footsteps. And now his son was going to have to go through some version of what he was already going through. So I just listened to him. I couldn't solve the problem. I couldn't fix anything, but I could be his friend, and I was. I remember one year coming up on Christmas. It wasn't my first year in because I don't think I would have been confident enough to do this right away. But one year, probably towards the end of my time coming on Christmas, I realized that a lot of the guys I was serving time with were really young men, not far from being boys, and that Christmas was coming up. And I just decided, spur of the moment, I had a prison job at that point, where in my prison job I earned, I think it was $90 a month. And so I had a little extra money in commissary. I didn't exactly have extra money, but I wanted to spend some of the money that had just come into my commissary account from my wages. I wanted to spend it to buy everybody in my unit. There were about 20 of us at that time, maybe 25. I wanted to buy them at least a small Christmas present. So I made out my commissary list and I thought about everybody and what they might like. And we're not talking big things like sweatpants or items like that, but a bag of chips or sodas or something that maybe I knew they liked or wouldn't be able to get themselves. And so I went to commissary. It was right before Christmas. And on Christmas morning, I went around and I just gave this present, a present to every one of my fellow inmates. And I said, Merry Christmas. I'm really honored to be with you today and glad to get to know you, even though it's not the place where any of us want to be on Christmas. I'm glad to be here with you and I'm glad to know you. And it was just, it touched everyone. I remember one guy just sitting up on the deck and above me as I was walking down the stairs. He said, man, Parker, you really touched me, man. That really touched me. And so this was the natural inclination I brought to being with these people. To being, not that these people are different than me, because they weren't. Many of them had not committed as significant a crime as I committed. But I just wanted to bring that kindness to everyone I met. That was the starting place. But I also learned that this was prison, and there is such a thing as a criminal mind. even if it's just a compensation for suffering or whatever. There is such a thing as a criminal mind that will take whatever it can and manipulate people and exploit people and kind of overrun people. So I learned also pretty quickly that I was going to have to be honest here. And I was. And people couldn't quite make out how somebody who could be the Santa Claus guy could flip in a minute and just turn sharp. I remember one time I was waiting to go to my prison job, and I was sitting in the common room watching TV before I had to leave, before they called the move. And this guy came up who was from the other side of the unit, and he came up and he stood right in front of me, right between me and the TV, and he started yelling up to the second tier, to his homie up there, and said, "Yo, hey, good morning, you awake yet, bro?" And I just looked at him and I said, "Dude, can you not see that I'm here? If you want to talk to your effing homie, walk your ass up the stairs and talk to him. Don't be yelling in my face." And he was just like shocked, because this is not a way that people talk to each other in prison. Even though you got some of the toughest dudes you're ever going to meet, people don't tend to talk to each other like that. And I wasn't trying to be mean to him. I was just like, hey, I'm here. Pay attention. Don't go to sleep. Don't be rude. Don't you talk about respect, because this was a guy who talked a lot about respect. Don't be disrespecting me. So I learned the importance of being honest. I had gone to prison for dishonesty, so I had a lot to learn. I had buried my own truthfulness, my own instincts, my own honest responses to people, and I let them come out. And this even happened to the point of anger. I realized that every situation is different. Some situations call for the kindness and compassion and a tenderness, and some situations call for something very different. I remember one day, I watched, when I was on the outside landscaping crew, I watched as I think it was the unit manager, maybe it was the associate warden, or anyway, they assigned a bunch of new guys who'd come into the unit. All of them were black, and all of them were from the inner city. One was from Chicago. I can't remember where the other guys were from, but they were all from the city, and they assigned them all to the outside landscaping crew. And I kind of knew what was going to happen with this, and so I was just kind of watching it. And the first day they just went out, and none of the guards who were our bosses actually gave them instructions, told them what to do. There was just a full day ahead of them, and no training, no guidance about what it meant to work on the outside landscaping crew. So, surprise, surprise, before long, these guys all ended up in the breakfast room. And they spent the whole morning sitting in the breakfast room. And this went on for days, and the guards didn't do anything about it. And then one day, the guards just decided they were pissed off about this, so they called everybody together, the whole thing together, and they started just jumping down everybody's throat, especially these 3 or 4 guys who had just been sent out here and weren't doing any work because they hadn't been trained to do any work. So they were starting to lecture them and come down on them. We're going to have to do this, and if you don't do this, we're going to send you to the hole. And right in the middle, this is prison, and I'm an inmate, just like every other inmate. But I could not help myself. I said, hold on here. And the whole room got quiet. The inmates were quiet, and the guards were kind of startled. And I looked right at the guards, and I was older than them. I was old enough to be their father, and in some cases even their grandfather. And I looked at them all and I said, you are not going to effing do this. You are not going to blame these people because you dudes are not doing your job. You bring these guys out here. None of them have ever used a power tool. They don't know how to use ride-on lawnmowers. They don't know how to drive a snowplow. They don't know how to use a weed whacker, any of this stuff. You are not going to not do your job and then blame these guys as though they're the ones in the wrong here, because that is not what's happening. And the room was just silent, and I could feel. I wasn't being angry just for the sake of being a pissant or whatever. I knew that what I was saying was true. And when anger that has truth behind it comes out, it tends to stop people in their tracks. Not always, to be sure, but I knew that in this case it would, because I knew these guards and they knew me. I was a hard worker. I was doing my job. They respected me and they were grateful for me because I was making them look good, but I was not going to let this BS go by. So I understood that in that place, it was my job, in a way. It felt right to me to speak up. And I understood that in prison, I learned more than any other place in my life that life is not, we don't just meet life one way. If we meet life just with kindness, we are going to get steamrolled. Whether it's in prison or whether it's in human services or whether it's in our neighborhoods, because there's a significant portion of the population that exploits kindness and will use it to whatever advantage it can. I learned that kindness was the way I wanted to be. And I also learned that if it was going to be a viable way to live and be in prison, I also needed to be honest. And I also needed to let myself get angry when I did. And so I did. And so I learned that flexibility. This is, if you've been watching this channel, you've heard me talk about this idea of compassionate accountability. This is probably where it was born. Yes, let's meet the world with kindness. Let's assume or make a pathway for the best in everyone. Let's bring tenderness, because everybody in this world is suffering. Everybody in this world has had a hard time. I don't care what their background is. I don't care how hard it was or how so-called privileged it was. Everybody in this culture is starving for kindness, for tenderness. And let's hold people accountable. Let's say, hey, yeah, I'll be kind, but I'm not going to sit here while you overrun me. I'm not going to sit here while you take advantage of me. I'm not going to sit here while you do things that aren't right. I'm not going to sit here while you smoke cigarettes in the bathroom and threaten everybody in the unit because we could get locked down just because you did that for your own selfish purposes. No, I'm not going to do that. So I learned in prison this flexibility. Life changes on a dime. One moment can call for kindness. One moment can call for real, just straight up honesty. One moment can call for, no, you are not going to do this. No, this is not going to happen on my watch. That's one of the many and one of the most lasting and important things I learned in prison. Don't just get stuck in one way of being. Don't just get stuck in, I'm always the nice person. Or don't just get stuck in, oh, I'm always the tough guy, the asshole who never has a soft side, who can never give people a place to land, a place to relax, a place to talk about what their situation and their lives are really like. One of many things I learned in prison, one of many things I'm profoundly grateful for, and one of many things I wanted to share with you. Thank you so much for listening. I do plan on doing more of these prison entries. If you like them and you'd like to hear more, please do feel free to like and subscribe. Please do leave a comment. Please share them in any way that you want to. I'm grateful to be able to talk in this way. I haven't had a chance to do this publicly, and I'm grateful for this opportunity. And I thank you for listening. Hope to see you again soon.